success. Today's topic for this Facebook Live is how to remember things on time. Three F's to remember things on time. In today's world, there is so much information overload, especially in the office. We are supposed to remember each and everything. That's what our boss expects. So that's what our colleagues expect. That's what our clients expect. And there is so much information. We have to remember when clients said what and what are the requirements and what are the nitty gritty in it, and what are the intricacy of it. Or we are supposed to remember or know the things that were not told. We are supposed to read behind the lines. There's so many things to remember in this tiny brain, which has like eight short-term memory slots. Can't remember all these things, and but expectation is there, and this not able to remember things can be a very costly thing, right? So you must have seen that because of not remembering thing, there could be production issues. You forgot to set up some job and then boom, there goes a problem. Or you forgot to do something important that your boss asked for, giving a report, and then boom, you're in trouble. It could cause delayed project if you forget to add some component into your into project that everybody else is asking for. And this whole things, of course, life creates lots of stress, right? That inefficiency dampens our performance, and the people will ask for it and we forget, and then they will pinpoint, they will belittle you. How can you forget about it? And of course, big source of stress. And then if this keeps happening again and again, it starts building worry. If you tend to forgetting, if you it's people are noticing again and again, then you'll start worrying that, oh, what if I forget? What if I take on this big project? What if I take on this big challenge, and if I keep forgetting things? And then your confidence goes down and you will not take on these opportunities. Another thing happens is builds the anxiety. Even if you don't forget, just the thought that you might forget paralyzes us. And then we again will miss out on opportunities, and we won't perform good. All this stress, anxiety, and worry keeps crippling our mind. And since all these negative thoughts are there, we start to forget more things. So the things that caused this issue kind of exaggerates, and then we end up going in a negative spiral. So how do you solve this problem? 3F. Okay, let's get to it then. The first F is to, if you want to remember more things, start forgetting things. Yeah, start forgetting things. That's the first of F, forget. So what do you forget? Forget non-important things. We don't need to keep our mind cluttered by hundreds and thousands of things that are there which are not important. So the trick here is to start figuring out what is important and remember only those things and learn to forget other things. And how do you figure out what are the important things? Simple trick I always use, and which always works, is ask yourself a question. Out of all this information, what is important for my boss for me to remember? What is important for my boss's boss to remember? And what is important for my company and my client to remember? It's not about you. You might feel, oh, I need to remember this thing. Not necessary. What is important for your boss's boss, client, and company? Those are the things that you need to remember. And if you find this thing, you will be able to consolidate. Another thing is looking at a bigger picture. For example, you don't need to remember all the integrity of each and every data point. What you need to remember is what is the implication of all those small data points are. So learning to forget is the first step towards learning to remember more, because our brain has a limited capacity. So that is one skill that made my career progress way faster, by knowing what is to remember and forgetting everything. And forgetting everything meaning taking out of your mind, taking out of your brain temporarily. And I'll get to that. There are times when you are supposed to remember the things which are not necessarily important, but they are critical. But they need not be in your brain all the time. So if you give space to store only the important things on our brain, you'll be able to recall it quicker in the meetings when your boss asks for it, or when you are doing any project. If you are remembering these important things, your decisions will be better, your thought process will be clear, and you will be able to take on the task in much more what do you call it, inspired way. So first step is to forget. It's counterintuitive, but that's how it works. Second step is to find. So instead of remembering things, find the things. And how you can do it is by organizing the information. Now you are supposed to remember, say, 100 things. Out of that, you figured out 10 things are there which are important that I need to remember. And then you remember those things. And what do you do about 90 things? You might be required to remember those things. You might be required to recall all those things. Instead of trying to remember those things, just find them. And how do you do that? Create your own system. For me, the system work is simple notebook. I have my simple notebook, and I just write it chronologically. Every day I put a date on it, and I keep writing on it. So just by knowing that, oh, I need to gather and find this information, and it happens sometime in October 15th, then I can quickly go back to that page, and there we go, boom. All that 90 things are there. 10 are in your mind, but there are 90 things that are already written, and I can quickly grab it. So if my boss asks me, not now, but in another corporate career, right now I'm the boss, so that's a fun part. But when I was in the corporate offices, whenever bosses to ask, I will always carry this thing. And if it is important, I'll just tell right away. If it is something that I haven't taken up my brain, then I'll just quickly find it. It takes like 30 seconds, and nobody minds about it. So that's the one way of doing it, my way of doing it. So you could figure out your own system to find the things and indexing it. The other important part is indexing. Now Google has all the information in this world, but they are like $1 trillion company because they can find that information for you. They have this index, they have the mechanism to find that information. So if we have collected like 10 of these notebooks, and if we can't find information, then it's no point. So you have to index it. And simple index is by going by the timeline. It's easy to find the timeline because typically our brain remembers the time when that particular event happened, that meeting happened. So you can quickly go back and search for it. And second way is, of course, using technology. All this Outlook is it's right in front of you every single day. Organizing your emails, keeping in particular folder, and just type it. You can just into the email, you can flag it, you can tag it. First thing is forget 90% of the information. Second is find that 90% of information. What is the third F? Third F is to be fascinated. Be fascinated by the topic that you're working on. When you're fascinated, when you're passionate about it, everything becomes effortless. If you're not interested in the topic, if you're not interested in your work, if you're not interested in the thing that you're doing, it's become very hard to remember anything, no matter how important that thing is. So the most critical part, I kept it at the last on purpose, because last is never the least. And that's why it's be fascinated. Be fascinated by the work that you are doing. Be fascinated by the project that you're doing. Be fascinated by what the person is telling you. Be fascinated by your boss's responsibility and the project and the world-changing world your team, your company is doing. And once that fascination goes to your mind, you don't need to think about all those things. You just remember, because it's a because it gets ingrained in your memory pattern automatically. So 3 things: forget, find, and be fascinated. And voila, you'll be able to remember things, whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do, and you'll be able to recall it very quickly. And the last piece, do you want to take this to the next level? Then register for my webinar, 5 steps to the high position and career and greater salary. This webinar has been watched by thousands of people, and people are loving this webinar. So go ahead, watch that webinar. It's 50 minutes, and you will